Does the idea of mastering real estate investing sound familiar to you? Have you been told that simply searching for properties online will lead to successful deals? If so, you may be feeling frustrated and overwhelmed by the lack of results from this approach. Tune in to hear how to shift your focus and learn the effective strategies for thriving in the real estate market.
Welcome to Biz Help For You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Now, let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Eudania Burrell, a New York native and dedicated public servant with 20 years of experience at the Department of Homeland Security, has emerged as an exceptional trailblazer in real estate investing. Celebrating 25 years of recovery, her journey is an inspiring testament to resilience and determination. Despite facing adversity, including job loss and home flooding during the pandemic, she harnessed the opportunity to learn real estate investing through platforms like Connected Investors and the PIN platform. In a matter of months, she successfully closed deals on her first 3 houses, igniting her passion for real estate. This newfound venture not only helped her overcome financial challenges, but also allowed her to revitalize her business, supporting homeless mothers and children to supplement her parents' income. So, Eudania, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Candy. I appreciate you having me on the show today. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you're here, and I want to hear the inspiring story. So if you want to just tell a little bit more about your story and how you began sharing this information with those interested in investing.
Absolutely. And so, well, you shared quite a bit of it. I am with the Department of Homeland and have been in 3 days, will be 21 years.
Wow,
And
congrats.
boy, oh boy, how time flies. However, when the world shut down in 2020, my job literally stopped. And my home flooded in that time as well. And so I often laugh about it today, but at that point, it felt like a threefold tsunami had hit me. And it actually turned out to be the perfect storm for me to be able to step into real estate investing. I had always been interested, and I'd been hearing advertisements about Connected Investors, Ross Hamilton. What would $10,000 do for you and your family? What would $5,000 do? Well, I certainly knew what it would do for my family and I. And so I decided to jump in, and I got the platform and I started utilizing it to its fullest potential, at least to my capabilities at that point. And I started reaching out to those who were in trouble, maybe with pre-foreclosure. And about 3 months in, I closed on my first 3 deals, 3 in 1. And so sort of like lucked up with that, and they always say in real estate, your first deal, it's like, oh, maybe I was lucky with it. Second deal, maybe the same thing, but maybe it was the work I put in. The third deal, for certain I'm doing something right. And so I have continued on that course and I haven't stopped since.
Nice. Well, I love to hear stories too, where people have overcome challenges and turned it into something positive. And a lot of us became entrepreneurs without planning to be entrepreneurs, but things kind of happen. So I
Yeah,
think it's always encouraging for people to hear that too, that you can take a challenge and turn it into something amazing that you maybe never thought would have come from it. So I appreciate your sharing that story.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And, this is just one of many challenges that I faced in my own life and, used it as a stepping stone to propel me into something different and to become more of myself. And so I'm grateful for the challenges that show up today because I know on the other side, if I think outside of the box, something greater will come from this.
Mhm. Well, getting into the topic, we are going to talk about like wholesale real estate investment. And
Yeah.
a lot of people might be thinking, what does that mean? Like, I don't even understand. I understand buying a house or selling, different things, but what do you mean by wholesale? So can you give a definition?
Oh, absolutely. So wholesaling is nothing more than, I mean, if you really, really want to break it down, it's me getting a property under contract for $1 and selling it for two. And so that's really, I mean, the whole basics of it. I get it at a low discounted rate and I sell it at a higher rate. And so I've been able to do that for the last 3 years. That's primarily been my investing strategy. However, it's allowed me to move into other strategies like the buy and hold, the fix and flip, and lending.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm Would you explain then maybe what the difference is between normal real estate investing, what someone might say traditional real estate investing, and this method of, what you're calling wholesaling?
Yeah.
Because again, people might say, well, of course you buy something at a lower price and you sell it for higher. Like, how is that any different?
And so I'm not holding on to the property at all. And when I put a property under contract, I have controlling interest over that property for a set amount of time, depending on what the seller and I agree on, whether that be 30 days, 60 days, or what have you. And so now I have controlling interest over that. And I'm just going to sell the property. I'm never ever going to own it. Whereas with traditional investing, a lot of people's strategies are that of the buy and hold. And so I'm
hmm
going to buy a property. I'm going to hold on to it for its appreciation value, for the cash flow or what have you. And also the fix and flip. I'm going to buy a property that is distressed and fix it up and then sell it. And that's going to
hmm
take time, energy, money, and effort. Whereas with wholesaling, it takes very little time, some effort, yes, to get, to build up a rapport with a seller in order to get it under contract and then sell that contract. So a
hmm
lot less time, a lot less effort, and a whole lot less money.
hmm So it really sounds like an agent type of position, though, where a seller says, I've got a property I need to sell. I need to have an agent help me, right? So then how is this different than actually being a real estate agent helping someone sell a property?
Well, there are no fees attached to it. I'm not an agent, and so I don't claim being an agent. I fill in the gap. I believe my role as a wholesale investor is that of someone who believes they can't sell their property on the open market because maybe
hmm
it's beyond repair, they believe, or they need to sell quickly and they don't want to pay all those fees, or they just simply don't want to deal with a realtor. And that's the case sometimes, and that's nothing against realtors. I love them. I
hmm
have plenty of friends that are realtors. So it doesn't take away from their key role in the real estate market because we know 95% of sellers sell on the MLS. But
hmm
there's that 5% that needs someone like me that can say, hey, don't worry about the repairs. Don't worry about any fees. We're going to take care of all of that. And that's exactly what we do. So, again, I feel like as a wholesale investor, I'm filling in the gap for those who need me.
hmm So if someone's listening then and says, oh, this sounds very intriguing, like I'm interested in finding out more. And if I get into this, then I need to know where to find properties or how to find, buyers who want to buy from these sellers. Like, can you go into maybe the steps involved in this process?
So, yeah, absolutely. So, the steps for me were one of which finding a platform that could supply me with off market deals. And for me, that was Connected Investors. And so, not only is it allowing me to search the entire country for off market deals, it also allows me to then, once I have a property under contract, I can then list it in their marketplace and have investors from all over the country put eyes onto my property. It also allows for training. Anything that I need to know about wholesaling, fix and flip, buy and holds, I can find it in their trainings. As a matter of fact, every Tuesday night, there is a live training with a chat where you can ask the coaches questions, I being one of the coaches. And so There is a wide array of resources within this one platform. And for me, it's a one-stop shop.
Mhm. Nice. So it sounds like this platform somehow finds the people who need this type of service, and then you find out what's available and then can match with someone, who wants to sell, and then you kind of go from there. And then you, once it's sold, get a portion of that, it
That's
sounds
right.
like.
That's exactly
Mhm.
right. And so what I get is what's called an assignment fee. And so I will put it under contract like we spoke about earlier, and then I will assign it to an end buyer who will then buy that and pay X amount of dollars. I get the cost, that's the difference from the
Mhm.
seller to the end buyer. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Okay. Mhm. So what if someone is listening now too and is thinking like, oh, well, I have one of these properties that I thought I was going to have to take the time to fix up and make it look pretty, before I get a real estate agent. But now that I'm hearing this and there's an opportunity, I'm interested in being one of those sellers. Like, what would they do to get into this process?
I want them to call me.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
you can look up investors anywhere in your area. You can look it up online. You can even go to Connected Investors and see if there's a trial period for you to list that property online. I
Mhm.
would definitely list it and list it yourself. You don't have to
Mhm.
have an agent to list a property, and you can list it in various places, Connected Investors being one, Facebook Marketplace being another, any type of groups that do investors, involve investors, you want to list them in those places. And I
Mhm.
guarantee you, someone will be calling you asking about that property.
Mhm. Right. So this sounds to some maybe too good to be true. Like, oh, I don't even have to actually buy it, but I get a fee for helping to sell it, So there's obviously an advantage to that, but I'm sure there's also, maybe there's even more advantages we haven't discussed, but I'm sure there's also some disadvantages to that compared to maybe a traditional, relationship again. So can you maybe talk about any advantages and disadvantage of this wholesaling method versus other types of investments or ways to work with real estate?
Well, I don't know that there are any disadvantages. At least in my experience, there haven't really been any disadvantages. It's been advantages all the way around because
Hmm.
I don't have to be licensed to do this. And I am an investor. I, opened up an LLC to be able to market myself as such. So for me, there are no disadvantages unless it's someone who just simply doesn't want to work with a wholesaler or someone who doesn't want to work with an investor that does my type of work. That could be a
Hmm.
disadvantage, but I'm of the belief that I'm specifically designed to work with certain people. And
Hmm.
so those who resonate with me will work with me. Those who don't, it won't happen. And I'm okay with that. So yeah, for me, there really are no disadvantages because I believe everything that's supposed to be for me will be for me. And,
Hmm.
whenever I'm talking with a seller and or a buyer, because now I'm both, I am a buyer as well. I buy houses now as well. But whenever I'm talking with the seller or buyer, it's important for me to build a relationship, to build great rapport. And so whether they sell with me or not, I have opened a door that they're allowed to come back through if need be.
Hmm. Right. So you had said originally too that you have like a contract that you put this house under to sell it. And I don't know what a typical number of days is for that, whether it's, 30, 60, 90, whatever that might be. But let's say you have something and it doesn't sell within that period. Are you able to just re-engage with them, or what does that process look like?
And so I love that question. And so thank you for that. Typically, I may put a property under contract for 30 days. When I first started, it was 45 days because I was nervous. I didn't know, how
Hmm.
long it would take me to market and sell a property. Typically, it's less than 30 days today. And so if we're coming to the close of that contract, I may have to re-engage with the seller. But remember, I've built a rapport with the seller. And I'm
Hmm.
letting them know step by step by step what's going on, and able to a lot of times extend the contract. I'm actually working on one right now in Texas where we had to extend, but now we have our buyer. And so
Hmm.
we won't have to extend anymore. And if it so happens that we are not able to find a buyer or sell that, sell that property, then I may have to end that contract. Those
Hmm.
That could be a disadvantage. But I tell you, in every one that I've ever had to let go, or, my clause is, if, during that due diligence period, we're not able to meet up, be able to close on that contract, then I have to close on it. So yeah, that is a bit of a disadvantage.
That's okay. So you said you enter a contract with someone, right, for a period of time, and then you're marketing it. And if you're
Yeah.
not a real estate agent, and obviously it's not on the MLS, like what do you do for marketing to get this out there so people find it to purchase?
So the beauty for me is, because I am a connected investor, I can market my properties right there in the marketplace. I can also market it in Facebook Marketplace or any other investor groups that I'm a part of, and I'm a part of a lot of them. I'm a part of your local RIAs, so I'm marketing to my local RIA members, and
Hmm.
that reaches far and wide because we are not only local to North Carolina, but we're in other states as well. We're interconnected with other RIAs. So
Hmm.
thousands of eyes are looking at my properties whenever I list them.
Well, that was another question I was going to have then too. I was assuming based on how you were representing people that you can do it in multiple states. So someone who's in one state and you're in another can still reach out with you and you can connect and represent them even though you're not in the same location, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've been able to do deals in Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, looking at one in Florida right now. So anywhere in the country, as long as they're in the country, we can make contact with a good closing attorney and or title company. We can do business. And
Hmm.
so, my
Perfect.
goal is to, we focus a lot on those who are going through the pre-foreclosure and possibly foreclosure. And so we want to help as many people as we possibly can, because when people get to the end of their rope in that situation, they're either A, sticking their head in the sand, hoping it goes away. They don't know what they can do about this property because, again, we talked about that disrepair, and they're like at the end of their
Hmm.
rope and they're scared. They don't know what to do or who to turn to. And so our goal is to reach as many as we possibly can in order to help them.
Hmm. Well, often when people are interested in investing, they're also thinking like, well, I want to make sure I have, property like within a certain area, or I know like schools are going to be great, or there's shopping, or it's by the beach, or it's, there's all these different things that you probably want to know about that property in general. So,
Yeah.
how would someone find out those details in this type of situation as well, where it's not on MLS? You're just going to have, do you engage with them first and then you ask questions and you're hoping for the best, or like how does that work?
No. And so again, my platform is Connected Investors. I'm able to look up a lot of that information right there. And of course, we're going to have a conversation with the seller. And then we can look at the county. We can do
Mhm.
our own due diligence by looking at the area. Is there growth in that area? What is the crime like? And so many different platforms will offer that information. So not only am I an investor, I'm also an investigator. And so when
Mhm.
I am looking at properties to buy myself, I'm looking at all of those criteria. And for every investor, the criteria may be a little bit different. And so not everybody is looking for the same thing. And thank God for the beauty of choice, because,
Mhm.
there's properties everywhere. Somebody might want a beach house, somebody might want a mountain house, and so for every investor, again, it's different, and there are different ways about going about it through the county, whatever platform you have, having a conversation with that seller, doing your own due diligence.
Mhm. Well, and how much time would you say you invest in like due diligence up front and then maybe working with the seller to get their property sold during that, 30-day agreement per se, so that someone can say, well, you have a full-time job, obviously, and you're still able to do this. I want to make sure I have enough time. Like, so can you talk about maybe the time investment that's required?
So it all depends on the deal. And so if everything is moving along smoothly, you've had that conversation with the seller, they're ready to sell, easy breezy, only one seller or maybe two on the deed. Makes it very easy to move through it. And so I may spend a few hours on this deal, not a whole lot of time.
Mhm.
But
Mm.
for me, I ask myself the question, what length am I willing to go to for my own success? And so I don't have to find time because every one of us is granted 24 hours a day. I have to make
Right.
time for the things that are important for me. And is this
Mhm.
important to me? You better believe it is, because this changes the entire trajectory of my family's life. And so I'm going to make the time necessary to make sure deals are closing and moving along smoothly. I'm very involved with our closings, with the attorneys, with the buyers, with the sellers. I'm very hands on. So for me, it doesn't matter how long it takes. I'm going to make sure I'm coming in doing what I said I was going to do. But normally, if it's, like I said originally, if it's just one or two sellers on the deed, it usually doesn't take any time at all. I've closed deals 2 weeks, 14 days. That's the soonest I've ever closed a deal. And usually it takes anywhere between 21 and 30 days.
Mhm. Okay. And so when you're having communication with whether it's, attorneys or the seller, things like that too, is this like phone calls, video calls, email, text? Like how is typical communication?
So typically with the sellers, it's phone call, but I have had some sellers who only want to communicate through emails. And so that sometimes, things can get lost in translation. So I
Mhm.
like to talk to my sellers. I like to hear the stories. I'd like them to hear my tone and see where I'm coming from, that I care about what it is I'm doing and I want to help them to accomplish getting this home sold. With the attorneys, originally I started off by going to my attorney's office because I wanted them to have a face to the name.
Mhm.
I wanted them to know Eudania Burrell in that office because I was going to be closing a lot of deals in there, and I have. And I'm grateful for that. And so, I built up those relationships. For me, it's relationship building. And
Mhm.
while I'm only working with a seller for a certain amount of time, I love to build those relationships because people work with, like you've heard, they people work with people they know, like, and trust. And I want that in my relationships.
Mhm. Well, it's definitely important to build those relationships, and if you're working with somebody and you help them sell, you're wanting them to like you and know that you did a great job so they'll
That's
refer
right.
anyone else,
Yes.
to you that they may think might need
Or
the
if they
service
have
too.
other
But
properties.
mhm.
I'm
Well, and I
sorry to
was thinking
interrupt.
too, are these only like homes, like single family homes? Are they apartments? Is it sometimes businesses as well? Like what is included in this type of service?
So I've only done single family and multifamily homes. As a matter of fact, right before we got on the line, I was looking at apartment building with 6 units. And so I'm getting ready to make that phone call. Do I want to wholesale that? No. Today I'm looking to buy and hold certain properties. And
Mhm.
something like this, I'd want to buy and hold. So I haven't wholesaled any apartment complexes or businesses.
Okay, but are those potentially available and you just
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
done them, or is this more like single family residences type of
It
situation?
absolutely it absolutely can be done at that scale, at that level. I myself have not. A lot of disclosures with apartment buildings when you're trying to wholesale. And
Mhm.
so I like to deal with the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, or
Mhm.
those who can really benefit from my help. And I
Right.
believe it's the single family homes, the ones that own the multi, like the one, excuse me, two, three, or fourplex. And that's still
Mhm.
considered like single family. Anything or
Right.
above, you're going into commercial.
Mhm. Right. Okay. So, is there anything else that you want to share on this topic that I didn't think to ask and the listeners could get some great tips from?
Well, if it's something you want to jump into, I definitely would advise jump into it. Know what platform you want to use, do your own independent investigation. While I have shared a lot about Connected Investors, it is a wonderful platform. Do your own independent investigation and find out what resonates with you. And also, if you're going to do this business, consistency is key. Motivation will get you started, but consistency will keep you going.
Perfect. Well, this has definitely been an interesting discussion. I don't think I've ever
Thank you.
had someone talking about this type of investing. We've heard a lot about real estate investing and how it can help you build wealth.
Yeah,
But the wholesaling side of it and not actually having to own it, but helping and not be a real estate agent at the same time, I think was definitely interesting. So I appreciate
thank
your
you.
taking the time to come and chat with me today.
Absolutely, Candy. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I so appreciate it. And to all the listeners, I hope that you've gotten plenty out of this.
And if they do have any other questions and they want to reach out, how can they connect with you?
Absolutely. Anywhere on social media, I'm Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Eudania Burrell, you can find me. And also, if you want to email me, dsimpleinvest@gmail.com, you're going to get a wealth of information I send back to you. And so, yeah, those are some of the few places you can connect with me.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate your being here to have this discussion with me.
Thank you, Candy. I appreciate it as well.
Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help For You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.